Binge watch and learn on TRS Clips. There was another topic at Spoken Mode in the Hindi episode, which was animal sacrifice.
Yes, Bali.
Yeah, we should talk about animal sacrifice
Okay.
on the English podcast as well.
Sure.
There is also an element of human sacrifice that you've mentioned to me
Yes.
in conversation.
Used to happen at an ancient time, not anymore. Okay. So, animal sacrifice, though, Bali, we call Pashu Bali, is a integral part of Kolo Tantra. Integral part. There is no question about it. Whether one looks at it from the Shastras, texts, or even the evidences from very great tantric masters, they've all agreed on this. There's no two ways about it.
You know, Tantra is a domain with so many intricate rules
Yes.
that I don't think as 2023 human beings we have a right to question what's happening if it's listed out in that much detail.
Yes.
It's one of those
Yes.
situations. Now go on, sir.
Yes, exactly. And I feel that a lot of the objection that comes is based on either misunderstanding or on certain degree of personal bias that people may have. So some people even believe that sacrifice has to be of the inner impurities. So that is one level of sacrifice that is fine. But tantras are very clear that there has to be an actual physical sacrifice in certain types of practices when they're done. Okay. And I mentioned the term Kolo Tantra again here because it was mentioned earlier also, because in Kolo Tantra Paddhati, when the puja is done, then you have to offer actual meat, fish, madhya, alcohol, grains, things like that. Okay. Actually. So even a great tantric acharya of the last 500 years, perhaps, very few people of that caliber, in Sri Vidya school of Tantra, he was known as Bhaskara Rai. He was from South India. Okay. So he mentions in some of his texts that pratyaksha is to be used. Pratyaksha means that which is actually there. So you cannot use a substitute for meat if you are in the Kolo Tantra path. Only if at all it is not available, you are in a circumstance where you have to do the ritual, but you really do not have all the ingredients. So then you may use a substitute for it. And those are also very listed. You cannot randomly use substitutes. So listed, what is the specific substitute? Like I was telling you, one of the substitutes for meat is considered to be urad dal vada. Okay. One of the substitutes for alcohol is coconut water. So it has to be coconut water. You cannot just take, say sugarcane juice and say that, oh, this is, no. Very specific. Tantra is very specific about the ingredient, about the time, about the mantra, about the paddhati and the deity. Only then it will work. And plus, there's an X factor, which is the sadhak. If the sadhak is incompetent, all the things also will not make it work. Okay. So these things are, now my point is, when you have to actually use meat, etc., things like that. So obviously Bali becomes an integral part. How, if you step aside from Tantra for the moment, there is a significant population of people who eat meat. Okay, whether one likes it or not, that is there. How is that meat coming? Obviously, there is some death is happening. Okay, and this has been the case since the beginning of humanity, and it will go on. It's not going to stop. It is not even a question of morality, to be honest. Those who are so those who personally say that I don't want to continue with me, that's all fine. But I believe that this specific judgment that that somehow not eating meat constitutes some great degree of spirituality, not necessarily correct. It's just a personal bias, which doesn't mean that I'm saying everybody has to consume it. Follow whatever is your cultural norm, do that. But there is enough evidence of many great masters who used to consume meat, other things. And now coming to the context of this ritual, though, those who are into Kolo Tantra and worship deities by this paddhati, they will have to use it. So where does the meat come from if you are not giving Bali? Bali is standard. Now this is one thing. Number two, Bali has other intricacies into it. I have seen evidences of very high caliber upasakas doing certain sadhana, etc. The animal for the Bali comes on its own with specific signs on the body. Okay. And if correctly given, it produces a tremendous effect. Tremendous effect. But again, all of Tantra is dependent on few things. One is right time, right place, right deity. In general, my opinion on this is very clear, which I've mentioned many times. There has been a concerted, in the same vein as I was mentioning during the British times. So there has been a concerted effort of stopping Bali in innumerable temples today. Hardly 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 temples have Bali Pratha still going on in India. I feel that is a mistake. There has to be 20 to 25% of Shakti Pithas must have Naimittika Bali. Naimittika means on specific tithis. Okay. So the worship of a deity is dependent on how the Shastras are guiding you. You cannot, if you deviate from the Shastras, so you can say that, no, I don't like this path, I'll follow some other path, that's fine. But if you are into this path, you cannot modify things based on your whims and fancies. Then it is not going to produce the result. As simple as that.
Yeah. I'm a pure vegetarian. I've turned vegetarian.
Okay.
And we've spoken about vegetarianism a lot on the show. I believe that in yogic paths, for the process of yoga to move forward, it's recommended that stick to a vegetarian diet when you're fully engaging in whatever people call Kriya Yoga, etc., etc. That's why I think the vegetarian narrative comes in. Also, I just want to mention to the viewers, especially those of you who might be getting offended with what Sir is saying, and I'm sure there is going to be some people, as is the case with every podcast. I think you're talking, as in Rajarshi Sir's talking, from the perspective of Tantra Shastra.
Yeah.
Which is rules written down and carried through time orally since ancient times. That's why you're saying that you think it's a mistake that Bali Pratha is banned in certain temples.
And by the way, not just for most people actually don't, among Hindus, one of the biggest problem is that 90% never read texts. They have no idea what is written in the text. What their conception of religion is what they heard from people who have also not read texts. So they have a very extreme amount of confidence कि मुझे सब आता है, लेकिन actually very little knowledge. Okay. So the idea of sacrifices was also there in the Vedic religion, and in doing certain analysis of the Brahma Sutra Bhashyas, Brahma Sutra is one of the core texts of Vedanta. Many of the ancient acharyas were very clear that even in the Vedic sacrifice where a Pashu Bali has to be given, it has to be given. It is not even a question of yes or no. To the extent even that Paramacharya, who is one of the most respected Vedic saints, Shankaracharya of Kanchipita, who is no more, one of the most respected Vedic saints, he also used to mention the same thing, by the way. And this is, I'm talking about few decades ago. He was perhaps one of the most respected spiritual figures in India and South India. He used to mention the same thing. Because what is there in the Vedas is to be done the way it is. If you do not do it, you are... So what happens if you don't do the Bali Pratha properly? So in times of crisis, and not just for an individual, by the way, I'm talking about society. A temple doesn't cater to only an individual. It caters to the energy level, protective energy level, positive energy level of that whole kshetra. When there is going to be some kind of difficulty, and if at all there is, that comes, the result and the involvement of the deity will also be very minor. So you have used a substitute, the result will also be a substitute. That is very clear. There is no two ways about it. And sadhana, remember this thing, is not about what you feel. मेरे को ये चीज अच्छा नहीं लगता है, I don't agree. Rishis are saying, all right, you go to a path that doesn't require Bali. No problem with that. But I will go to this path, to Kola Tantra, and then I will criticize that this is not correct. That means you're not worshipping the deity, you're worshipping yourself.
Do you have to eat the meat of the animal?
That depends on what specific practice is being done. Okay. It's a lot of people I know, actually, who are complete vegetarians, and even in some cases people of other sampradayas and all that, who come to Kamakhya to give Bali, specifically when there is certain kinds of problems which are insolvable otherwise. Okay, so Kamakhya has a reputation. A lot of people come there to do certain pujas and balis and things. Some problems which are very, very difficult otherwise to solve. So it is not compulsory to eat. However, there are certain rituals in Tantra, in Kola Tantra, which is very high level, which is known as sitting in a chakra and performing those rituals, etc. So there you will have to consume.
The meat.
Yeah, whoever is a part of that ritual.
Is it cooked in a certain way?
Yeah, it's cooked in a certain way. There is no, you cannot add onions and garlic to it. And there is a certain manner of cooking. Not just meat, there'll be fish, there'll be other things, etc. And that eating is not normal eating at all.
As in?
There's a constant chanting of mantras
While you eat.
done. Before, after, continuously, before consuming anything. It's a sadhana. And it's a very interesting sadhana, and perhaps one of the most powerful sadhanas. When a group of upasakas who are initiated, who know this, multiple of them, 6, 7 of them can sit together, simultaneously do this ritual. So it is as if you this ritual works by the principle of a certain non-duality with the deity. It's the deity who is consuming these things through you. And your mantra japa carries on along with whatever you are consuming. So normally what a food would have taken you, say half an hour to consume, this ritual may take you 2.5 to 3 hours. Okay. Elaborately, step by step. There are a lot of rules where you keep how you keep the plate, what you touch, what you cannot touch, how you do, etc. There's a hierarchy of people sitting, who is more senior, who is a lot of things are there. Correctly done, it is one of the most powerful rituals. It's like simultaneously a group of people are doing certain amount of sadhana of the deity, and it generates tremendous power.
When an animal is sacrificed, spiritually what's happening?
To whom?
To the environment? To the person who actually is responsible for the animal's death?
So, if it is a correctly done sacrifice to a deity who accepts the sacrifice, the deity becomes very happy with the sacrifice. Okay. Then that is both what the Shastras tell you. Our Tantra Shastras are very clear about it. There's no question of dithering in this. There are innumerable examples and details given there. The person who is facilitating this gets blessed by the deity. Okay. And the animal who is sacrificed, that animal is taken to a higher birth. And that could be any kind of birth that is more, from the animal's point of view, that is more better than what it was. Okay, what kind of life it led. So these factors, by the way, are mentioned many times in texts. Many times. And that is also the same logic that is used even in the Vedic texts when they mention sacrifices. In fact, that is why some of the Vaishnava acharyas also, who were very proficient and knowledgeable in the Vedas, they themselves were not just vegetarian, they were strict ascetics. So there's one is vegetarianism and the other asceticism, which is like very little food, very little interaction, specific types of clothes, etc. But they even, one of the greatest acharyas, they even mention that the Bali is to be taken like, suppose you have an injury and you go to a doctor, and those times, suppose anesthesia is not there. So certain kind of, initially you feel a pain because there is some operative procedure that may be done, but eventually you will be very happy. So it is to be looked at like that. And because it is done with the chanting of the powerful mantras, power of the mantras, blessing of the deity, eventually considers this whole process, it is to the extent they go on to mention that it is not to be considered as himsa. It is not at all an act of violence, it's an act of elevation, provided you do it by the rules.
And there must be elaborate rules.
There are a lot of rules. The khadga of the mother, which is used for Bali. Khadga means the weapon of the mother. Okay, with which the Bali is done, Bali Vidhan is done. That weapon becomes charged with tremendous power. Tremendous power. It is worshipped also. In many places. In some places, when the Bali is given, before it is given, there is a mantra that is said in the ear of the animal. Okay. And once one of these khadgas are out of use, because obviously through use, one day it will become, blunt or something. You have to use a new one. So the old ones, even a bit of that metal, if somebody keeps at home or comes, no negative is ever going to come near you. Whatever the dark forces we say, they are absolutely scared about this thing.
Okay. You've witnessed a Bali?
I've given Bali many times.
What does that mean?
Nothing. I've take an animal, sacrifice, take a sankalpa, give to the mother in Kamakhya.
Goat?
Goat.
Okay. How does the animal behave?
Animal will struggle initially. Or you can, if there's a lot of balis happen, then the animal may struggle. And if there are some places where less balis happen, then you do it at as quickly as possible with the least amount of sort of, struggle or something like that. So that is why the bali always has to be in one shot. If the bali, in fact, the bali ritual is so important that the text mentioned that it's also the conventional living wisdom is that if a bali gets, if an error happens in the bali, you are not able to do the bali in one shot. It is to be taken as a sign that the deity has rejected your sacrifice. And be absolutely certain that negative consequences will come to the individual.
Has that happened to you?
No.
But you've seen things like this happen?
No, I have not seen anybody's bali. But this is an accepted wisdom. So everybody knows it who comes for bali. The other thing is that bali pratha is also very popular. So those areas where generally meat eating is more popular. So bali is a very standard practice. Even without the Tantra Shastras also, the common population, lot of times, so they may have a specific desire and a mannat and what you call it, to the deity. They may say that, okay, if this gets fulfilled. So that I think that is perfectly all right. Because as I say, at the end of the day, for the vegetarian, it may seem like very odd or something like that, but there are innumerable people who are non-vegetarians. They have been so, they are today, and they will be so, and they have produced great saints also, by the way. So some of the greatest tantric masters, whether it is Matsyendranath or whether it is Brahmanandagiri, Purnanandagiri, they are fantastic high caliber siddhas. They've all given bali, they've written about bali, etc. So there's no reason to believe that there is anything wrong on that. It's a matter of perspective.
Yeah. Do you want to mention what you told me outside about insulting the bali or crying about it within the temple premises?
I do believe strongly that specifically for Kamakhya Pitha, if you are visiting there, if you have an objection to the bali, it's fine. You can have an objection. You can say that I don't like it. So then don't go there. That's my point. If you go there, and if you are highly critical of it, it is possible that you will invite certain consequences in your life after you come back from that pitha. Because Kamakhya is not like any other place. It is absolutely alive. It's charged. And there is Ma Kamakhya. And there are various other entities there surrounding her. Parivar Devatas, you call it, etc. And I have seen this happening many times with people. And I warn them this one thing. If you're going there for the first time, it's okay. You may feel shocked by the bali, etc. Don't criticize. You don't bother about it. You don't have to give bali. You don't bother about it. You be focused on the deity. You do your sadhana, you come back. But if you sit there in that kshetra and keep criticizing, you are inviting trouble. So this is also the generic idea of the rishis, why so many paths were given. It is not because you sit in path A and start criticizing path B. Just because you don't understand doesn't mean it doesn't work. So the reason why these were given is that there will be people with different temperaments, tendencies. For some, this is the right path. For some, it could just be some other path, etc. So you stick to your lane. And don't bother about what the other lane is doing so long as they're following the Shastras. So
TRS Clips has all sorts of videos and all sorts of playlists. Make sure you explore the channel by subscribing and heading to our homepage and reading through all the playlists. Happens through curiosity.